exercise, you will learn about cross-site scripting vulnerabilities, how it affects web applications. Reason behind this exploitation or manipulation is to gather sensitive information like session cookies, session tokens, additional information that persists on the user. Laboratory. Kasi yung ping pataas ng pataas 300, hindi ako mag-laboratory. So ganito ngayon. Cross-site scripting is a common web application vulnerability exploited. It often results in an execution of malicious scripts on the victim's browser. Web pages usually contain static text and dynamic content that has scripts and or code. Web browser authorizes and allows execution of scripts that originate only from the same domain. Practice is typically called the same origin policy. Positive exploitation manipulation of the cross-site scripting vulnerability occurs by tricking the same origin policy's web browser. A typical cross-site scripting exploit happens with malicious scripts enter the web application via a trusted source which is transmitted to the web server. Types of cross-scripting: reflected cross, stored cross, DOM. DOM-based cross-site. Reflected cross-site are the most common form of XSS attack, also called non-persistent XSS attack, since the malicious script is stored permanently in the database or the server. Most cases, injected script is returned part of the HTTP response. The rare event of occurring successful reflected XSS real-life exploit is as follows. User logs in, user sends reliable HTTP, attacker seizes the request and crafts a malicious request. Attacker forwards the request to the server. Sensitive HTTP responses for the malicious request and injected scripts get executed in the user's browser. Sensitive facts are returned to the attacker via execution. Stored XSS scripting, otherwise called persistent cross-site scripting, supplied by attacker, is stored either the web server or the database. DOM use client-side JavaScript functions for various purposes like validating the user inputs before the request reaches the server for performance reasons, reducing processing overhead, etc. Client-side JavaScript and function fails, the HTTP request will not be sent to the server and an error message is immediately thrown to the end user. Ikaw basahin ko na lang ito. Kali Internet Demo Testfire. Skip ko na ito. SQL injections. Vulnerability occurs when malicious user or attacker injects special characters into application's input fields. Any application that fails to apply a validation or implements a poor validation technique is susceptible to SQL injection vulnerabilities. Attacker malicious inputs are now inserted into a SQL query parameter, which in turn is considered for execution by a database engineer. There are different types of SQL injection. Identification, classification tests are done by analyzing behavior of the applications. Common attack types are as follows: error-based SQL injections, blind SQL, second order. Blind SQL exploit occurs by constructing the SQL queries of the database execution engines to make answer few yes or no questions. Product name, product description, from product to product. Example, consider simple page that displays the product name, product description, given the product ID as an input. Above query returns the details product based on the ID that is supplied. The attacker can now check the inject database with the query will run a false result as per example below. From products, where product ID 1. Magdadagdag ng floating code lang yan para magkaroon ng false. Okay. If the application is vulnerable to blind SQL injection attack, database server will not return any records responding to the above query since 1 residue is always false. Second order, vulnerabilities occur One attacker's malicious input is stored in database table and is used as an input parameter in different SQL query in different place. Hindi ko alam ang gagawin ito. Handling application exceptions improperly can provide a ton of information. Attacker can be used to perform additional exploits. Hindi ko gagawin ito ngayon. Race condition memory leak, resource exhaustion, and overflow. Race condition occurs when an application processes multiple operations simultaneously, causing failures in execution or potentially overwriting user information, resulting in integrity concern with data. Overflow attacks occur when an application fails to release memory locations held by objects, pointers, and other variables assigned with the memory address or accepts more input than it can handle. Attacker might launch a buffer overflow or denial of service attacks. Application might behave in expected ways due to read-write out of allocations memory bounds. Memory leak in specific discloses sensitive information that is previously written into memory blocks. One or more of the above explained vulnerabilities could result in complete resource exhaustion. The browser, ensure risk, click advance, and must try, accept the risk and continue, sign in, admin, password, feedback, link, search bar, and user, then the application does not perform online checks or overflow attack. Is vulnerable to overflow. Thank you. Directory traversal and path manipulation allows an attacker to traverse and to refer to web server directory and access files that otherwise can not allowed access. Directory traversal, also called the path traversal. A directory listing loophole lists all the files and subdirectories used in the web applications. Vulnerabilities. Path manipulation allows the upload of malicious files into the application. Directory traversal vulnerabilities at the minimum help identify the root directory of the application, helps to advance other exploits. File inclusion vulnerability allows you to upload files of your choice into the application directory. It's also called the // attack. Exercise 6 Privilege escalation allows normal users access they would not otherwise have to access to. There are other types of privilege escalation: horizontal, vertical. Horizontal privileges escalation allows unauthorized access to system resources or application files of another user at the same level or role within an organization. This exercise will perform vertical privilege escalation, changes external access with practical outcome. This has been removed. Driver manipulation replay attacks, less prevalent in web applications. Exploitation of these vulnerabilities could lead to serious consequences like compromised confidentiality, integrity, and availability. Device manipulation replay attacks. Primary way to operating system to communicate with the hardware devices. Attackers can manipulate the device, drivers, and compromise security on the system. One way to do is to run malicious code, also called a shim attack. And also alter API call parameters, repeating data to perform malicious action is referred to as a replay attack. Session hijacking is a form of replay attack, generating a new session without validating existing or allowing an attacker to steal sessions, information, and authenticate the application without valid credentials. A malicious user gets hold of a valid sessions ID from of an authorized user and reuses it to impersonate the authorized user to perform malicious activities. Users can become victims of this attack when serious IDs do not have expiration time or a session that is stored encrypted plain text form. Web applications can allow using session's ID or session credential for authorization or vulnerable to replay attacks. Pass the hash API attack request forgeries, pointer dereference, and SSL stripping. Request forgeries are a subtype to replay attacks. Other attacks are like pass the hash, SSL stripping, and pointer dereference expose sensitive information leading to unauthorized access and disclosure. Ano to? Tinanggal na to. Okay. API attacks, pointer reference, pass the hash, and SSL stripping. Most common one is logging attacks. Application programming interface have an authentication process similar to the web applications. Secure API code reject invalid login attempts, but in reality, most APIs are vulnerable to credential surfing attacks, resulting in successful login without valid credentials. APIs are also vulnerable to denial of service attacks that result in resource exhaustion or complete takeover of the system. Implementing secure authentication and authorization mechanisms to ensure only valid users can access API is a must for API security. API keys used for authentication should have a similar level of protection as usernames and passwords. Also called an SSL downgrade or SSL stripping, allows attackers to bypass security mechanisms and force through phishing via SSL certificates. Pointer object null dereference is where application dereferences a pointer that is expected to be a valid address but instead is equal to null. Pass the hash attack allows the attacker to resend a hash password values is captured via a man in the middle attack for authenticating into a system.